The first time they called my daughter a disgrace. She was standing right there. It happened during a family gathering. Everyone was sitting in the living room, talking, laughing, pretending everything was normal. My daughter had just walked in after finishing a long day at the hospital. She looked tired, but proud. She had been working so hard lately. Long shifts. Sleepless nights. Endless studying. But before she could even sit down, my aunt looked at her and shook her head. "I still can't believe this," she said loudly. The room went quiet. My daughter froze. "What?" she asked softly. My aunt crossed her arms. "After everything your family expected from you, this is what you chose?" My daughter didn't respond. But I could see it in her eyes. That familiar pain. Then my cousin added, almost laughing. "She used to be the pride of the family, now she's just an embarrassment." Embarrassment. Disgrace. Words thrown so easily. Like they didn't carry weight. Like they didn't hurt. But what they didn't know was that very soon, a doctor would walk into our lives and say something that would silence all of them. No one defended her. That was the worst part. Not the words, but the silence that followed. My daughter stood there for a moment, then quietly placed her bag on the chair and sat down without saying anything. I wanted to speak up. I wanted to tell them they were wrong. But I could see she didn't want a scene. So I stayed quiet, just like everyone else. And I hated myself for it. Dinner continued like nothing had happened. Plates passed around. Small talk filled the room. But my daughter barely touched her food. She just sat there, lost in her thoughts. Later that night, when we got home, she finally spoke. "Do you think they're right?" she asked. The question hit me harder than anything they had said. "Right about what?" I asked gently. "That I've ruined everything," she said. I turned to her immediately. "No," I said firmly. "Never." But she didn't look convinced. Because this wasn't the first time they had said things like that. For months, the family had been questioning her choices, judging her decisions. And slowly, those words had started to get into her head. But what they didn't understand was this. My daughter hadn't ruined anything. She had made a choice. A difficult one. And soon, the truth behind that choice would come out. It had all started a few months earlier. That was when everything changed. My daughter had always been the perfect one in the family. Top grades. Big ambitions. A future everyone was proud of. They had already planned her life for her. A high-paying specialty. A prestigious title. A life that looked impressive from the outside. And for a long time, she followed that path. Until one day, she didn't. She came home and told me she had made a decision. "I'm switching," she said. "Switching what?" I asked. "My specialization," she replied. I remember the silence that followed. "What are you switching to?" I asked carefully. She hesitated for a moment. Then she said it. "I want to work in community care and rehabilitation." I blinked. That wasn't what the family expected. That wasn't the glamorous path they had been bragging about for years. It wasn't high status. It wasn't high income. But it was something else. It was meaningful. "I want to help people who are usually ignored," she said quietly. And in that moment, I understood. But I also knew something else. The family wouldn't. And when they found out, they didn't just disagree. They turned against her. The backlash was immediate. The moment the family found out about her decision, everything changed. Phone calls started coming in. Not to support her. To question her. To waste all that potential like this, one relative said. "Do you even realize how much money you're giving up?" Another added. It didn't stop there. Family gatherings became uncomfortable. Every conversation somehow turned back to her. To her mistake. To her poor decision. "She could have been something big," my uncle said once, shaking his head. "She chose the wrong path," someone else replied. Wrong path. That's what they kept calling it. As if helping people who had nothing was somehow less valuable. As if purpose mattered less than prestige. My daughter listened to all of it. Quietly. Respectfully. But I could see the weight it was putting on her. Each comment, each judgment, was slowly breaking her confidence. Still, she didn't quit. She kept going to work every day, helping patients, staying late, giving everything she had. Because deep down, she believed in what she was doing, even if no one else did. But soon, something would happen that would force everyone to see the truth. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. It was late in the evening when my daughter came home. She looked exhausted, more than usual. But there was something else on her face too. Emotion. What happened? I asked immediately. She sat down slowly and took a deep breath. There was a patient today, she said. I waited quietly. He came in with severe complications, she continued. No proper treatment before, no support, nothing. Her voice softened. Most people had already given up on him. I frowned. Given up? She nodded. They said his recovery chances were very low. I could see her hands tightening. But you didn't? I asked. She shook her head. No. There was a long pause. I stayed, she said. After my shift ended. I stayed. How long? I asked. All night. I stared at her. All night. She nodded again. I couldn't leave him like that. That was who she was. Not someone chasing titles. Not someone choosing the easiest path. Someone who stayed. Even when no one else would. But what she didn't know yet was that this one patient was about to change everything. The next morning, my daughter was still at the hospital. She hadn't slept. She hadn't gone home. She stayed right there, beside that patient, monitoring every small change, adjusting treatments, refusing to give up. Around mid-morning, a senior doctor finally walked into the room. He looked at the reports, then at my daughter. You're still here? He asked. She nodded. Yes. He raised an eyebrow. You were on night duty? No, she replied quietly. I stayed after my shift. He looked surprised. Why? She hesitated for a second, then answered honestly. Because no one else did. There was a brief silence. The doctor stepped closer to the patient and reviewed everything again. Then he looked back at her. You adjusted this treatment plan? He asked. Yes, she said. And monitored him all night? Yes. The doctor didn't say anything for a moment. He just looked at her, carefully. Then something changed in his expression. Not doubt. Respect. Good call, he finally said. Just 2 words. But they meant everything. Because for the first time, someone who truly understood her work had recognized it. And that doctor wasn't just anyone. That doctor wasn't just a senior. He was one of the most respected specialists in the entire hospital. The kind of person whose opinion carried weight. The kind of person people listened to. He reviewed the patient again, more carefully this time. Then he turned to the team outside the room. Who was handling this case before? He asked. A few staff members exchanged uncomfortable glances. No one stayed overnight, someone admitted quietly. He nodded, but didn't say anything. Then he pointed toward my daughter. She did, he said. All eyes turned to her. For a moment, she looked unsure, almost uncomfortable with the attention. But the doctor continued. If she hadn't adjusted the treatment and stayed with the patient, he said, we would be dealing with a very different situation right now. The room went silent. Those same people who had ignored the case were now looking at her differently. Not as someone who chose the wrong path, but as someone who made the right decision when it mattered. The doctor then said something that no one expected. I want her on this case officially. My daughter blinked in surprise. Sir, she said. You heard me, he replied. You've earned it. And just like that, the girl they called a disgrace was now being trusted with a life. From that day on, everything started to change. My daughter was now officially part of the case. She spent even more time at the hospital, checking reports, talking to nurses, adjusting treatments carefully, and slowly, something incredible began to happen. The patient started improving. At first, it was small. A slight response. A stable reading. But then, progress became visible. Day by day, step by step. He was getting better. The same people who had once ignored him were now watching closely. And the same people who doubted my daughter were starting to whisper. Was she right? Did she actually save him? But my daughter didn't care about any of that. She only cared about one thing. Making sure the patient survived. Because for her, this was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about doing what was right. And soon, the results would speak louder than anything the family had ever said. A week later, the patient did something no one expected. He opened his eyes. Fully conscious. Aware. Alive. The room filled with quiet shock. Doctors. Nurses. Staff. Everyone was looking at the monitors, then at him. Then at my daughter. The senior doctor stepped forward. Unbelievable, he said under his breath. He turned to the team. This recovery shouldn't have been possible at this stage. But it happened. Because someone refused to give up. The patient's family arrived soon after. Tears in their eyes. Gratitude in every word. Who stayed with him? They asked. The doctor didn't hesitate. He pointed at my daughter. She did. They walked straight to her. Holding her hands. Thanking her over and over again. And in that moment, everything the family had said about her felt small. Meaningless. Because real value isn't decided by opinions. It's proven by impact. News of the recovery spread quickly. Within the hospital, everyone was talking about it. The case that was almost lost had turned into something extraordinary. And at the center of it was my daughter. The same daughter people had judged. The same daughter they called a disgrace. The senior doctor later called for a small internal meeting. Doctors gathered. Staff stood quietly. And then, he spoke. I want to make something clear, he said. This case was saved because someone chose dedication over convenience. He paused. Then looked directly at my daughter. She made the right call, and she stood by it. The room was silent. Respectful. Real. For the first time. Her work wasn't just seen. It was acknowledged. But what none of us expected was what would happen next. Because the story wasn't staying inside the hospital. It was about to reach the people who once judged her the most. A few days later, we had another family gathering. The same house. The same people. The same room where they had once called her a disgrace. But this time, something was different. Before anyone could start their usual comments, someone spoke first. Is it true? My cousin asked. My daughter looked confused. What? I heard about the hospital case, he said. The patient you saved. The room grew quiet. All eyes turned toward her. Even my aunt, the one who spoke the harshest words before. She didn't say anything. She just waited. My daughter nodded slightly. It was a team effort, she said humbly. But then, someone else spoke. The senior doctor mentioned her by name, another relative added. And just like that, the truth entered the room. The same room that once judged her. Now listening. Now silent. Now unsure of what to say. Because for the first time, they were being forced to see her reality, not their assumptions. No one called her a disgrace again. Not that day. Not ever. My aunt finally spoke, but her voice had changed. I didn't know, she said quietly. My daughter didn't respond. Because some words don't need answers. They need time. Later that night, as we drove home, I looked at her. You never needed their approval, I said. She smiled softly. I know, she replied. But it still hurt. I nodded. Because I understood. The truth is, people will judge what they don't understand. They'll label what they can't see. But sooner or later, the truth finds its way out. And when it does, it doesn't argue. It doesn't shout. It simply stands there, undeniable, and corrects everyone. Proven.